Hello everyone. Once again, welcome to PM Networking. Hope you all are doing great. Guys, today in this video, we are going to understand switchport mode and trunking encapsulation protocol modes, because interviewer is asking lots of questions from switching right nowadays. So lots of my paid students receive these questions in interview. That's why I'm making this video. And I am going to discuss each and everything on real devices, because in switching, you know, output on simulation software is really different right from the real time. So that's why I have access of switch 1 and switch 2. This is my real device. I have connected both switch together through one Ethernet cable and so CDP neighbor. If you will check the port, here you can see I have connected switch 1 and switch 2 together through port number 20. Okay, so I am on switch 2 and switch 1 is my neighbor. Switch 1 is connected on which port? 0/20. On switch number also 1 also you can run so CDP command to verify it. Okay, so here also you can see the router 1 is also connected with switch 1 and switch 2 is connected with switch 1. Fine. Okay, so this video is actually for network engineer or for the people who is planning to become network engineer, who is going to attend interview for network engineer. Okay guys, so without wasting our time, let's begin the session. Guys, first of all, how many types of switch port mode are there? So there are two types of switch port mode. Number one is administrative mode. Administrative mode. Second one is operational mode. Operational mode. Guys, what do you mean by administrative mode? Administrative mode means the admin configured mode. What mode network admin configured on switch port, that is nothing but administrative mode. So here we can say it is admin configured mode. Configured mode. And you know, administrative mode can be, your administrative mode can be dynamic desirable, it can be dynamic auto, it can be access, or it can be trunk. So there are four types of administrative mode are there. Okay, so if interviewer is asking you how many switch port mode, how many switch port administrative mode are there, so always keep in mind there are four types of switch port administrative mode. Okay, so either you can configure a switch port as dynamic desirable, dynamic auto. These two are mode of DTP, dynamic trunking protocol. As you already know, DTP is used to form trunking dynamically between switches. Okay, or administrative mode can be access or it can be a trunk. After that, next mode is operational mode. Guys, operational mode is operating mode. Suppose you have configured administrative mode as dynamic desirable, so maybe that port will become what? Trunk. Maybe that port will become what? Access. Okay, so that is operational mode, means output. Operating switch port mode is nothing but operational mode. That switch port is operating on which mode? Okay, and operational mode can be, or here you can say this is output configured. Fine, on switch port. And operational mode can be either access or it can be either trunk. So only two types of operational mode are there, right? Access or trunk. So a switch port can be access port or a switch port can be a trunk port only. Okay, and by default guys, if you will check the administrative mode, what administrative mode is configured over here, administrative mode configuration is dependent on your platforms of switches. So if you will check platform of this switch, so version, here you can see this is my 3750 switch, right? So on this switch, administrative, by default administrative mode is dynamic auto. Dynamic auto. If you want to verify, so interface F1/0/20 and say switch port. Here you can see by default administrative mode is what? Dynamic auto. And operational mode is what? Static access. That means it is operating mode. That this switch port is operating on access, static access. Yes, and administrative mode means engineer have configured this switch port as dynamic desirable mode. Okay, so now hope it's clear to you. Okay, now see, between I have connected two switch 1 and switch 2 together, right? Suppose by default here mode is auto dynamic auto, and here also dynamic auto. As you know, dynamic auto and dynamic auto cannot form trunking, right? This is concept of DTP, dynamic trunking protocols, which we already discussed, right? So we are not going to discuss DTP protocol over here, but what I am saying, between switch 1 and switch 2 now trunking will not form, but DTP is sending one message, because by default DTP is enabled on switches. So both switches is sending one DTP message, yes or no? This switch is also sending one DTP message to switch 2 after every 30 seconds, and switch 2 is also sending DTP message to switch number 1. Yes, after every 30 seconds. In the DTP message, what is information, guys? Information is about my administrative mode. So my administrative mode is, this is DTP message. Inside the DTP message there will be administrative mode. My administrative mode is dynamic auto, and in the same way switch 2 is also saying my dynamic mode is auto. So we cannot form trunking, yes or no? After that, how many types of trunking encapsulation mode, trunking encapsulation protocol mode, guys? So again there are two types of trunking encapsulation protocol mode. Okay, again we have two types of trunking encapsulation protocol mode. Number one is again administrative mode, and second one is again operational mode. Here administrative mode can be what? It can be administrative mode of trunking encapsulation protocol can be .1q, or it can be ISL. Okay, only two types of administrative mode are there in trunking encapsulation protocol, and operational mode will be what? And one more, here one more mode can be there. Administrative mode can be .1q, can be ISL, or it can be negotiate. And this is by default. Negotiate is your by default trunking encapsulation mode. Fine. After that, operational mode can be what? Operational mode can be .1q or ISL. .1q or ISL. Okay, .1q or ISL. So there are two types of switchport mode and there are two types of trunking encapsulation mode. So guys, here between switch 1 and switch 2, by default which operational or and administrative mode is configured on switchport? So here see, switchport mode, same command, show interface F1/0/20 switchport. It will show you the administrative trunking encapsulation mode is what? Negotiate, and operational trunking encapsulation is what? Native. Okay, so operational mode can be native as well. Here let me mention it. It can be native. So because trunking encapsulation protocol will work only on trunk link, so on access link, on access port, the trunking encapsulation operational mode will be native only, right? On a trunk it will be ISL or .1Q. So now this interface is a static access. Here you can see operational mode is a static access. So that's why it is showing me operational trunking encapsulation is native, and the mode administratively trunking encapsulation mode is what? Negotiate. Okay, so here my encapsulation protocol mode is negotiate, and here also it is negotiate. Okay, yes. Okay guys, it is negotiate on both sides by default. Okay, so it will not form trunking. In DTP message, what switch one will send? Their administrative mode and their administrative trunking encapsulation mode, that is negotiate. So both are saying that I am waiting. Both are waiting. Both switch is waiting for negotiation. Yes, for initiation, for trunking. So here also it is negotiate. Fine. Now just wait guys. Yes. Okay, so now what I am going to do, now I am going to make switch 1 port as dynamic desirable. So what will happen here? It will change their administrative mode in DTP message. Yes or no? In the DTP message, not this one, let me erase it. Here if I will configure dynamic desirable, what will happen? See, dynamic desirable. So it will send their administrative mode. Their administrative mode is dynamic desirable, and encapsulation protocol mode will be again negotiate. Yes or no? So on Cisco devices it will negotiate their proprietary protocol, that is ISL. Yes or no? And here on switch number 1, if you will run command show interface trunk, you can see I don't have any trunk port over here. Yes, and show interface F1/0/20 switch port. Okay, now I am going to change this administrative mode of switch port. I am going to say interface F1/0/20 and say switch port mode dynamic desirable. Yes, I have configured it dynamic desirable. So now if you will check show interface trunk, so you can see 0/20 is configured as now trunk. Yes or no? Here if you will run command show interface F1/0/20 and switch port, now you can see administrative mode is dynamic desirable and operational mode is trunking. That means this port is operating on trunk. Yes or no? And here you can see administrative trunking mode is negotiate, but operational mode is what? ISL. So it can be .1Q, it can be ISL only. Yes, or it can be native. Got it guys? So here if I will change the encapsulation mode, what will happen? Switch 2 will also negotiate. For now if you will check on switch number 2 interface, so interface F1/0/20 and switch port 20, and let's say switch port. Here you can see here administrative mode is still dynamic auto, but operational mode is what? Trunk. Here encapsulation is negotiate, and it has also negotiated ISL. Yes. Okay, and negotiation for trunking is on. So what if I will disable DTP over here and I have configured dynamic desirable mode over here? So what I am going to do now, I am going to disable DTP over here. Let me run command. And guys, this is also on interview question. Interviewer can ask you how to disable DTP. Few people are saying that you can run command switch port mode access to disable DTP. No guys, if you will enable debugging over here, let me enable debugging for DTP. Debug DTP packet. Okay, wait. Config T interface f1/0/20, and here you can see DTP message. This switch is sending DTP message, yes or no. After every 30 seconds it will send. Now I am going to configure here switch port mode static access. Right now, if you will run command, so interface f1/0/20 and switch port, here you can see I have configured administrative mode as a static access and operational mode is also a static access. Yes, but still it is sending DTP message, yes or no. That means still DTP is running over here. So if you want to disable DTP, you need to run command no negotiation on that port, interface f1/0/20, and say no negotiation. Switch port no negotiation, no negotiate. Right now this switch is not going to send any DTP message. Yes, just wait. After this you will not see any message. And here if you will check show interface trunk, so you can see there is no any trunk port now. On this switch also show interface trunk. Yes, and now you can see switch 2 is not sending any DTP message, or it is still sending DTP message. Yes, it is still sending, but now it's sending to router number 1. From which port guys? f1/0/1. Earlier it was sending from both port, from 0/20 as well. Where is DTP message sending? Yes, here you can see it was sending DTP from f1/0/20 as well, but now it's sending only from 1. Let me down the interface which is connected with router, interface f1/0/1 says shut down. Right now this switch is not going to send any DTP message. Yes, and this time guys, what is happening over here? Let me show you. Let me make another diagram over here. Say don't save. And switch 1, switch 2. On switch number 1 I have disabled DTP. Switch 1 and let's say switch 2. Here I have disabled DTP. So administrative mode is what here? Access. Here administrative mode is what? Dynamic auto. Right? Encapsulation mode is what over here? Negotiate. And operational mode over here is also negotiate. Okay, so guys, here now if I will configure this port as administrative trunk, so switch 1 is not going to send any DTP message. So this time how switch 2 will negotiate? Is it possible? No. Here also I am going to disable DTP, because on packet tracer if you will configure trunk on one switch, it will form trunking automatically. Okay, but now here on the real devices, let me disable DTP over here as well. So interface f1/0/20, say switch port mode, let's say what? Dynamic, not dynamic desirable, let's say access, and say switch port no negotiate. Right, this switch is also not going to send any DTP message. Okay, debugging is on for DTP, so let me disable debugging as well. And now here on switch number 1 I am going to configure what? Trunking. Interface f1/0/20 and say switch port mode trunk. See what is saying, how it's possible to configure this interface as trunk if encapsulation protocol is auto, because this time switch is not going to negotiate, yes or no, because switch is not going to send any DTP message and switch is not going to receive any DTP message over here, right? So do so interface f1/0/20 and switch port. Here you can see administrative mode is what? Native. Here you want to try to configure trunk, but you are not able to configure it because this time negotiation is off. That means here you can see negotiation of trunking is off. That means you have to define encapsulation protocol mode, administratively encapsulation protocol mode. Yes, so let me say switch port trunk encapsulation and let's say .1q, right? And now switch port mode trunk. Now here you can see so interface trunk. So f0/20 is configured as trunk. Encapsulation protocol is what? Dynamic, sorry, .1q, right? Status is trunking, native VLAN is 1. Okay, on switch number 2, so interface trunk, no. So if you have disabled negotiation manually, you have to configure trunking both sides. So here also I am going to say interface f1/0/20 and switch port mode trunk. No, I am not able to configure it. But if I will, enable DTP, then can I configure switch port mode trunk over here? No, then also you cannot configure switch port mode trunk. If you want to configure trunking statically, you have to define what? Encapsulation protocol. Let me run the switch port negotiation over here. Switch port no negotiation is the command to enable negotiation. Switch port no, not here, no switch port negotiation. This will be the command, right? I have enabled the negotiation over here, yes or no, and I am going to say switch port mode trunk. So I am not able to configure trunk because this is a static trunking, right? It is not going to negotiate the encapsulation protocol from DTP message. Here you want to configure trunk, so you can configure administrative modes as dynamic desirable. Switch port mode dynamic desirable, yes. And so interface trunk, still you can see trunk is not there because on switch 1 you have disabled what? Trunking negotiation, so it is not going to negotiate with switch 1, right? So here also you have to, if you are configuring a static trunking on both switch, you have to run switch port mode trunk command. Interface f1/0/20 and say switch port mode trunk. I am not able to run this command, so switch port trunk encapsulation, let's say .1q and switch port mode trunk, yes. So interface trunk, so interface trunk. See guys, okay, so this is static trunking, fine. Now I am going to enable DTP again. Interface f1/0/20. There is one command like default and what command I will run over here? Default duplex, no. Okay, switch port mode and dynamic auto, fine. Switch port trunk encapsulation negotiate, okay. I have configured like by default configuration, yes or no, on switch number 2 also I am going to. And now if you will verify over here, so interface trunk, you can see it is still showing you trunking with the help of negotiation. Here are you able to see n means I have negotiated it. This encapsulation protocol is, I am using this encapsulation protocol, but I have negotiated it. Yes, because here encapsulation protocol is negotiate. Okay, that means on switch number 1, if I will configure encapsulation protocol as ISL, switch 2 is going to negotiate it. Let me do interface f1/0/20 switch port trunk encapsulation ISL, and on switch number 2, if you will run command now, see it's still showing what .1q. So interface trunk, here I am using what ISL, and here I am using what .1q. So just what you need to do, you need to down this port and you need to up again, then you will see negotiation protocol will changed. Interface f1/0/20, say shutdown and say no shutdown. Shutdown and no shutdown. So interface trunk, there is no any trunk. So interface f1/0/20 and say switch port. Here I am running what static trunking. So you can see on switch number 2 no trunking. Fine. Now what I am going to do, on switch number 1 I need to configure dynamic auto and I need to enable negotiation over here. So negotiation dot encapsulation protocol is configured as ISL. Okay, so switch 2 will negotiate it ISL, but here I need to enable negotiation. Interface f1/0/20 and say switch port, say no switch port, no negotiation, right? See, this switch also negotiate it as ISL. If I will change it over here on switch number 1, interface f1/0/20 switch port switch port trunk encapsulation .1q on switch number 2. See guys, what encapsulation protocol is running ISL. I am going to down this interface f1/0/20, say shutdown and say no shutdown. So interface trunk, see it has negotiated .1q, yes or no. Okay, very basic things, these are very basic things. Interviewer can manipulate you guys, so that's why I am making this video, because lots of my paid students have confusion in switch port mode and trunking encapsulation mode. So hope till now it's clear to everyone. Yes, now on both sides, if I will configure what dynamic auto, sorry, dynamic desirable, then what will happen? And if I will disable the negotiation, here also if I will configure DD, and here also I will configure DD, and if I will disable the negotiation, right, it is not going to form trunking. Yes, okay. So not so, config T interface f1/0/20, say switch port trunk encapsulation switch port, no negotiation, right? Here also interface f1/0/20, say switch port, no negotiation. What is saying? Command rejected, because the administrative mode that here you have configured is dynamic. So definitely it is going to negotiate, and you are going to say to this switch no negotiate, so it is not allowing you. First of all, you have to configure this port as switch port mode access. static access or static trunk, then you can run this command and switch port mode dynamic desirable. See, I am not able to run dynamic desirable command over here because you have disabled negotiation. Yes or no? So if you are going to configure dynamic desirable or dynamic auto over here, make sure you have configured negotiation, then only DTP will work. Okay, so I am going to remove this command. Okay, and switch port mode trunk. Here manually I have configured switch port mode trunk, but this command I am not able to run this command because encapsulation mode is what? Auto. So switch port mode trunk and let's say .1q. Switch port trunk encapsulation, switch port trunk encapsulation .1q. Now here I can configure a static trunk. Okay, so to configure a static trunk you have to define encapsulation protocol. Yes or no? To configure dynamic mode you have to enable negotiation. Okay, so this is two concept of switch port, guys, and here only actually interviewer is manipulating people. Okay, now the last thing is, suppose this switch is connected with one router, and as you know DTP is by default enable, so switch will send one DTP message after every 30 seconds from here also. Suppose this is my LAN interface, right? So I want to disable DTP over here. Make sure all LAN ports should be configured as static access, guys, so that it will not send any DTP message, or that port is not only configured as a static access, but you have to disable negotiation as well. So on F1/0/1, which is connected with router number 1, interface F1/0/1, here switch port mode access must be configured, right? After that switch port no negotiation must be configured. These two commands must be configured on LAN interface. Okay, so if interviewer will ask you that what command we need to run on on the LAN interface so that DTP will not send any message from LAN interface, so you will run these two commands there. Okay, guys, so these are basic things about the switch port mode. If it is clear to you, if you have learned something from this video, please hit on like button, guys. If you have not subscribed this channel, please subscribe this channel. We will meet soon in next video. Till then, stay safe. Bye bye, guys.